The Presidential Visitation Panel set up by President Muhammadu Buhari to investigate the removal of Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundipe as the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Lagos by the Governing Council of the institution in August 2020 last week submitted its report to the Federal Ministry of Education. The 241-page report reaffirmed the decision of the Governing Council, led by Dr. Wale Babalakin, SAN, to remove the VC and held that it followed the laid-down procedures in his removal. The visitation panel went on to indict Ogundipe, stating that under him, the management of the university concealed the accounts and other critical information for 3 years from the Governing Council of the university. The VC was further alleged to have breached contract tender processes that resulted in contract splitting to the tune of 1.8 billion naira. The bursary of the university was also indicted for diversion of funds, fraud, incompetence, misrepresentation, and concealment. Even the sum of 500,000 naira provided monthly by Dr. Babalakin to the law faculty for the purchase of law reports was diverted and could not be accounted for. To give us insight into the report and tell us why the Nigerian university system is in dire need of reforms, we're now being joined by Dr. Wale Babalakin, former chairman of the Governing Council, University of Lagos. He was Pro-Chancellor, University of Maiduguri from 2009 to 2013. In the same period, he served as the chairman, Council of Pro-Chancellors of all federal universities. Currently, he is Pro-Chancellor, University of Lagos, a position he has held from 2017 till date. Good morning, Dr. Babalakin, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Let me start that really I'm not here to join issues on University of Lagos. I will only discuss them incidentally. I'm here because of the collapse of the education system in Nigeria, which bothers me a great deal. The events of University of Lagos are simply a manifestation of a decay that has gone on for so long. Before coming here, I stumbled on a statement in Independent made by Professor Okebukola, who is a former Executive Secretary of NUC, who is currently Pro-Chancellor of Nigerian Open Universities. This is reported in the Independent. He says, despite milestones, a dark cloud hangs over education in Nigeria. Professor Ogundipe says no serious-minded employer will touch Nigerian graduates with a 10-meter pole. Now, this is where we found ourselves. Where have we found ourselves in this place? We found ourselves in this place largely because, whether deliberately or due to inadvertence, the university system has completely collapsed. All the issues of University of Lagos stem from only one issue, that I refuse to be one of the boys. That is all. I became Pro-Chancellor. These are the first minutes of the first meeting we had. And with your permission, I will read from it. The chairman again welcomed members to the first meeting of the newly constituted council and informed them of the vision for the new council of the University of Lagos. He also stated that the meeting will be a short one. The chairman noted the dearth of funding for universities, the limited funds for research, and the need to create more sources apart from those for tertiary education. He informed the meeting that he looked forward to fresh initiatives in council, because if there are no new ideas, the university will soon be described as a second-rate teaching institution. At the national level, he said there must be need to establish a more robust source of funding of universities, and that request for increase in salary will correspond with increase in productivity. The chairman informed the members that under his chairmanship, council meetings will keep to scheduled time. He also declared to the meeting that he had no personal or financial interest in the university, and that throughout his tenure as Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Council, he will not collect any remuneration or fees from the university. He also stated that he will pay for his staff salary and other expenses incurred in the Pro-Chancellor's lodge. That was an alarm to the system. because no pro-chancellor had taken that position before in the University of Lagos. And my reason to taking that position was simple. The president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, struggles to find money for the universities. And these monies never get used for their purpose. Somewhere along the line, the money is not spent appropriately. In Unilag, as I later discovered, a substantial part of it was misappropriated.
Well, Dr. Babalakin, if I could comment here.
Yes.
I think it was exactly 1 year ago, September 15, 2020,
Yes.
when you submitted your letter of resignation from
Yes.
council.
Yes.
And in one of the paragraphs in your letter of resignation, you listed, the basis for your resignation.
Yes.
You raised issues, one, about the composition of the visitation panel. Two, you raised issues about financial malpractices within the university system, financial malpractices promoted by management. Three, you questioned the position taken by the federal government in terms of asking you to step down and asking the vice-chancellor later to come back. And you raised issues about the composition because the visitation panel by the federal government comprised mainly of former vice-chancellors, some of them from state universities. Okay, 1 year later, we hear that there is this report that has vindicated you. But there were two panels. There was a special panel first, which supported, apparently, management. And then this latest visitation panel report, which is on your side, which will make you feel vindicated. Why do you think that we have this contradiction? Two different panels looking at the same set of facts and allegations.
Okay. It's just a matter of process. The first panel that was set up was inappropriate. Clearly inappropriate. Because what happened was the technocrats in the ministry, without hearing the sides, without knowing what happened, came to the conclusion that there was no fair hearing for the vice-chancellor. That is not a conclusion that a permanent secretary who is not very skilled in legal issues can make. Then he set up, I exonerate the minister because at this stage, the minister was receiving medical treatment abroad. So I don't think he was part of it. Then he went ahead and said he had set up a panel. Now, the panel met and came to the conclusion that there were some infractions. Nobody has seen that panel report. I commend this day for digging out this report. I stumbled on information now that the chairman of the panel actually wrote to the ministry disowning that panel. This is the letter written by Professor Tuku Sahad on October 7, 2020, the chairman of that panel. He said, when you read the report, you will notice that it was very one-sided, so to speak. The option was for the chairman to refuse to sign the report, and that would have been a slap on government. He said, as far as the majority of the team was concerned, they would like to save the VC, who was presented as a victim, having been sacked by the council, and no effort was spared in minimizing his fault. He then catalogued in all these reports that everything, allegation that we made, happened. You have a copy of the letter. He said there that there was contract splitting. He said on the issue of frivolous expenditure of the expense of the core mandate of university teaching and research within the period in question, VC and his cronies undertook 75 external trips, costing hundreds of millions of naira, while the total annual DTLC, that's for direct teaching and learning, of the department was 35 million. Now, he also said the accusation of management hiding financial status of university from council, the bursar disclosed that he only presented project performance to the FG and BC, not the whole treasury content. Apparently, some almost 10 billion was never visited to the council, And yet, interested parties in the panel harassed him and cajoled him to retracting what he has said. Then he said again, even after the panel was set up, the vice-chancellor went to court. Now, under the university laws, you can't go to court, vice-chancellor, when you are removed. What you can do is appeal to the visitor. Again,
Dr. Babalakin, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We need to take a short break.
Yes.
After that break, we'll return. And Dr. Babalakin is still here with us in the studio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Dr. Wale Babalakin, SAN, former Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Council of the University of Lagos, Chairman previously also of the Conference of Pro-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. Dr. Babalakin, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
So you were referring to a specific document.
By the chairman of the panel.
Yes.
Again, the vice-chancellor resorting to courts shows his ignorance of the laws governing the university. I've mentioned that. I believe in the report the VC was recommended to be reprimanded, even though he had withdrawn the case. There are a number of memoranda sympathetic to the chairman of council for the good work he was doing and for being above board when it came to financial probity, but this did not show up in the report. Now, what the submission I'm making is that the first report was faulty. And it wasn't faulted by me, it was faulted by the chairman of the panel. When he then heard that they were going to write a white paper on it, he issued the most damning statement I've ever read on any recommendation. He said, the final recommendation of the panel was that the matter should be referred back to the chancellor, irrespective of what the panel recommended. As chairman, I didn't intend to sign a final report, but felt that it would be a slap on the face of government, and it will generate so much bad publicity in the public domain that I would rather sign on the understanding that the matter will be referred to the Shehu of Borno as the chancellor. As it stands now, I feel I was made a fool of and stabbed on the back by people I trusted. Furthermore, it will be impossible for any council to manage a university in this country if the recommendations of the panel are implemented in a white paper. And these were the recommendations that were implemented in the white paper that led to the dissolution of the council. It had been totally discredited by the chairman himself. But the technocrats in the ministry, determined on an agenda, went forward. You mentioned the members of the panel. I appeared before the panel very reluctantly, only out of respect for the minister. These are the members of the panel, all working in the academic sphere. You now brought them to probe a pro-chancellor who has been standing up for the truth. As Professor Boniface said yesterday, they were only protecting their turf. As reflected by the chairman of the panel, they had a one agenda: indict Babalakin and save the pro-chancellor. My concern is that whatever you've read in this day about the vice-chancellor is an understatement. I hope one of the panel members will put the whole report for the Nigerians to see. It is cruel to have such a system. I fought it from the beginning that, look, we're here for these students. I was a student of this university. I know how exceptional it was. The university, the first day, I was the first pro-chancellor, I was told, to visit all the faculties. I went to the law faculty and I asked for the law reports. No current law reports. I was so moved. I said, okay, this is 500,000 a month for you to buy law reports. And I assumed they were being bought. Until a professor came to me 20 months down the line and said, I heard you donated money for books, but we're not seeing the books. I said, it's not possible. This day report brought it out. All the money I paid for books was diverted into a non-university account. Say staff welfare account or something like that, instead of going to the university's TSA account, and spent at will. That was not the only donation. I went to Creative Arts. They made a presentation that will make the whole Steve Rhodes envious. And I said, what is your challenge here? No money. So I said, okay, every month I'll give you 400,000 naira for the minor things you require. I gave them the money. That didn't feature in the report. I hope that was paid into a proper account. In the law faculty, we found students hanging on window sills to listen to lectures. The university I attended, we had full air-conditioned environment. I just couldn't believe it. One of the professors called me and a few. We gave the money and we prepared the auditorium. Now imagine the alarm when we started looking at the accounts and we discovered that the university has simply misled us. The university wasn't short of funds. It was simply being diverted. My word for UNILAG is that corruption did not start under Ogundipe. It is actually endemic. And it cannot be unveiled by any visitation panel, no matter how strong. I'm happy that the visitation panel recommended that an international accounting firm should come and look at the affairs of the university. I will not stop at that. I will say a judicial panel with a judge knowledgeable in finance should look at all universities, especially University of Lagos, and it will be discovered that as the federal government is just pumping money into these universities without getting commensurate return. Why am I so forceful about these issues? I wore 2 caps. I was the pro-chancellor of the University of Lagos. I was the chief negotiator with ASU. ASU comes to us and says, we want more money, want money, want more money. Universities are underfunded. Universities are underfunded. And I know that the university I'm in charge, the money is not being well spent. And I say to myself, this must be total confusion.
So let's take it from that point.
Yeah.
With that looming specter of another ASU strike, what does the public need to know to put the issues into proper context? And looking at the letter Professor Saad wrote to the Ministry of Education that you just read from, talking about how the DTLC of all the departments of the university was just 35 million naira per annum, whereas the report in this day talks about over 40 million naira being spent renovating homes. There was a newspaper report a couple of days ago how Nigeria is spending 55 billion naira as a country a year to get foreign professional services because, as this paper that you supplied us with, this front cover here of The Independent, no serious-minded employer would touch university graduates with a 10-meter pole. Can you put all of this in context for us?
Okay, very good question, Tundu. I chaired the ASU strike, the ASU negotiation. I don't know what happened after I left. But my position was, 1, government will not sign any document that it cannot comply with. Pactum sum servanda, agreements once reached must be honored. So I took that position. Secondly, I said, good education is compulsory. If government is able to fund it, so be it. If not, government is not able to fund it, the students must not be deprived. We must find other sources of funding apart from the federal government. The university's position is, the ASU position is that government must take care of everything. And I said, what if government cannot afford it? I said, well, that's government's business. Secondly, I insisted that you must have key performance indicators to know whether these lecturers are actually delivering. Oh, I was told, oh, Babalakin is a new capitalist, he's bringing World Bank policies. Hey, we got to measure what you're doing. You say we shouldn't measure you. How? And we should continue to give you a lot of money. These are the fundamentals. I don't know what was finally agreed with them, but I know that if government continues to pump money into these universities without seriously assessing how these monies are spent, then we are in deep trouble. Ogundipe is just a symptom. When I got into the council the first time, I looked around. Wow. Everybody in the management had a second class lower in the first degree. I said, how? When did this become a fallback ground? When I was in the University of Lagos, if you didn't make a second class upper, you couldn't even come near trying to be a graduate assistant. Everybody. So it's not that one person was, Ogundipe had a 2-2 from Ife. His other two had second class lowers.
But on that score, I mean, people can grow, they can develop themselves.
You should let me finish.
It's not everybody that get a first
Let
class.
me finish, Mr. Ruben. I was going to qualify it. If you came up with a 2-2, then you must have shown subsequent distinction. Maybe you did a master's and did exceptionally well. Or you did something that shows that, oh, there was an error in your earlier degree. But let me tell you the message. When you look around a hall and everybody came out with a second class lower, it tells you the level of people applying to universities. Why is it like that? It's like that because today, universities have simply become another federal government parastatal where so many things just happen there. Okay. It's not the university you know.
Okay.
The position of vice-chancellor now has become a coveted position because what it does is that it confers a lot of advantage on you.
Okay.
The professors are earning about 450,000 naira. But if you're a friend of the vice-chancellor, you can be made a director, so you get a car. You can travel regularly. You can get allowances. So it's in everybody's interest in the university to kowtow to the vice-chancellor.
Okay. I want to come in here.
Yes.
If we talk about corruption in the university system, we will not leave here today.
Yes.
I mean, I think it was FUNAB that there was a case of corruption, that he went to a court case with the vice-chancellor. And we have pockets here and there as regards this. But amidst all of this, what I'm concerned about is the grass that is suffering in all of this conversation, the students. How can we build a university system that makes a Nigerian student very employable? Because today employability is low. You're talking about Professor Peter Okebukola saying you can't determine a meter pool. How can we build that system? And my second question would be, do we need to increase the fees? Secondly, is it incumbent on us to say that education should be deployed in a socialist form? Because the argument has been we should deploy it in a socialist form, government should take responsibility for it. But the best universities Nigeria go to everywhere in the world, it's not deployed that way. I mean, you went to Cambridge, you paid your fees in Cambridge. Or maybe you got a scholarship. So how can we make Unilag better than Cambridge?
First, you have to change the mindset of that it's just another civil service job. You have to change that mindset, and it's going to require a serious team of people who are convinced. Secondly, you have to take the universities out of full control of the ministry. Today, at the end of the day, the permanent secretary, Ministry of Education, wields enormous powers in the universities. All the things that happen in the University of Lagos, from the beginning to the end, to even the new appointments, were all wrong in law. They cannot survive any legal test. And the permanent secretary presided over it. What's the business of the permanent secretary with the universities? The first time I wanted to probe Ogundipe, I got a letter from the PAMSEC's office that don't touch these two items. I was in disbelief. I called his bluff. I was going to go ahead. No, the member representing the Ministry of Education told me that the PAMSEC said I shouldn't talk about it. I said, what do you mean? I shouldn't talk about what? I've been pro-chancellor before. I know the rights of a pro-chancellor. I said, give it to me in writing. She brought it in writing the next day. That don't look at the collapse of the building and don't look at the accounts of the university. Sonny Ocheono signed a letter to that effect. Why should we have such authority? Based on what? Furthermore, When you free these universities, they will now become their own people. We can't run them like a factory. Every university should have its own identity. I stumbled on a report prepared, University of Lagos valuation, about 4 years ago, 68 billion naira. 68 billion naira. For inflation, 100 billion. So the value of University of Lagos is $200 million. What impact can such a poverty-stricken institution make on education? What impact? I attended the convocation of Harvard University 2 years ago. The guest speaker was Bloomberg, the son of the man who owns Bloomberg. His father was in Harvard, he was in Harvard. I gathered that Harvard had over $50 billion in reserve, more than the reserves of Nigeria. That is the sort of institution that you need. But you cannot have it if it is government controlled. I advised, look, take out one university per zone as a test run. Put it under a dynamic leadership. See how it works. I'm not talking geography. Only as recent as the 70s, UCH, Professor Kigwe told me, was rated number 4 or 5 in the Commonwealth.
Number 5 in the
Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Commonwealth, England,
India,
New Zealand,
Pakistan,
Australia, Canada, everywhere was number 5. You had pro-chancellors who could profess outside Nigeria. I recall in Cambridge, there was one visiting professor, Professor Boyo. He was in University of Lagos, and he was in Cambridge. So we used to try and tease him. Say, how are your colleagues in Nigeria? Say they must not profess beyond the airport. That their professorship ends at the airport. They must not profess. That's what he used to tell us. And we will tease him regularly. Was it not the same country that Ojetuju Aboyade reluctantly became vice-chancellor of University of Ife? He was entitled to his second term. After 3 years, he resigned. The next thing, he was back in his department in Ibadan. I met him because his daughter came into Cambridge while I was there. And I asked him, but Vice-Chancellor, why will you leave such a position? He said, no serious scholar wants to be Vice-Chancellor. It's too much of a distraction. I did it out of service. Where are those scholars today? The competition for Vice-Chancellor today is do or die, because it's the likes of Ogundipe that are contesting. People that must not profess beyond the airport. They mustn't. So that's the first step. We must get that clear. We owe it to these young people to rebuild Nigeria educational system. I saw a lot of comments on the newspaper after my removal, after I resigned and they dissolved the council. I didn't respond. You know why? The arguments were too mediocre. There was nothing to respond to. They had no facts, and they were talking with so much conviction. There was a panel here who mentioned their names. They were raining abuses on me. Hey, the software report said there was fair hearing, and the man was rightly removed. The only saving grace is that this day leaked the report. Otherwise, they will have written a white paper that will not be related to what happened the way they did the first time. But today, I'm sure the members of this panel will not allow anything to be written about them that is not consistent with what they put there. Let us forget about spoiling things to make them good. I don't think I'm making sense. What do I mean by that? I'm sure Tunde wasn't around, or if she were around, she didn't know about 1979. Before 1979, every town in the Southwest had a good secondary school. Every town. Funded by government, by local government, by community, and they did exceptionally well. We woke up in 1979 and said, free education. But what was the free education? It wasn't that you wanted to upgrade the poorer schools to make them good. What you wanted to do was degrade the good schools. For example, I attended Government College Ibadan. We were at the average 100 in the class.
We were really privileged. You went to all the good schools.
I don't know, sir, but I attended Government College Ibadan. We were only 100 in the class. We had all the facilities beyond most private universities today. Every house had a field. We had a hockey pitch. We had a farm. We had a pineapple orchard. We even had an armory full of guns where we were trained how to use guns. Now, in 1979, there were 700 students. Government wakes up and turns the population to 3,000 without one single infrastructure. Nothing was added to it, 3,000. So where is the school today? University of Lagos, when I was there, had about 7,500 students. Now it has 50,000 thereabout. Have we multiplied the infrastructure by 8? No, what we've just done is to share poverty instead of building institutions. All we did was share poverty. These are policies that require us to reflect back and think. Going back to, you mentioned members of the panel. These were the members of the panel. When I appeared before them, the only person who was a professor of law there, I Googled him. Nothing appeared under his name. Professor of law. Nothing appeared under his name. Yesterday, I called another person. Maybe I'm not using Google well. Let me Google this man now. I gave him his name. Nothing appeared. That was the professor of law that was to interpret whether I had complied with fair hearing.
Anyway, two quick issues I would like to raise. The first is that, you mentioned the fact that University of Lagos is your alma mater. And you were the first alumnus to become pro-chancellor and chairman of governing council.
Yes.
And when you got in there was a lot of excitement.
Yes.
Within the university environment.
Yes.
This is our own. Before then, you had been pro-chancellor in 2 other universities.
Yes.
You've been chairman of committee of pro-chancellors of Nigerian universities. So for many people in the university community in UNILAG, it was our own coming home. And then, although you say in your letter of resignation exactly 1 year ago that you took the positions you took on the basis of principle.
Yes.
But let's not fake it. You left the place with bad blood. Do you think that, looking back now, you feel somehow that, you have shut the door against future alumni who may be considered to be a chairman of council, because the position now will be, look, all these alumni people, they will come back now and say, this is not the UNILAG I attended and I want to change things. Then second point you raised about white paper. It's about due process. This, what we're discussing, is a leaked report. It's not as if government has already received the report of the visitation panel and issued a white paper and arrived at its own conclusions. So discussing a leaked report, when in actual fact visitation panels visited about 41 universities, the only one that has been leaked is that of the University of Lagos. Why is the University of Lagos visitation panel report more important than that of the other 40 plus universities?
I wouldn't know who leaked it, but the first panel report was demonstrable injustice. You painted good people as bad. I led the most selfless council. You painted them as not knowing what they were doing. It was wrong. And the chairman of the panel said to you, it is wrong. Don't go ahead. Why won't one of them try to leak it? The first panel report, we never saw it. Nobody saw it. Secondly, why are we holding visitation panels in private? I was a young man when Justice Akombi was doing a panel on Ife. Coming from Ife, I would stop by to see my dad in Ibadan. Everything was in the open. What are we hiding? If we're seeking to improve the place, My living University of Lagos, I hope others will follow suit. If you find yourself in a place where you disagree fundamentally with what is wrong, the right thing is to resign. You shouldn't stay there. What was I doing there? I only went to assist. Why should I stay on? When my employer says he doesn't agree with what I have done, even though my employer was wrong, I resigned. The same way today, I feel the permanent secretary of Ministry of Education should recuse himself. You set up a panel on the basis that there was no fair hearing. You set it up. Your own panel comes back to you and says there was fair hearing. You can't sit in judgment on that document again. It is just immoral. You can't. Somebody else should sit on it. And for you to be upfront, publish the panel report and publish your own recommendations so that we know that it flows directly from it. But for you to come and say government white paper and we don't know where it came from. I'm happy, I commend this day again for leaking the report because we have to save the education system. What you have now, as according to Kibukula, is a joke. It's just a joke. If the allegations made against Ogundipe and confirmed by the panel are found to be so, it will be unfair to only dismiss him. Because contextually is worse than the governors. From a 5 billion IGR, you diverted 1.8. That's 30%. The governors that are being jailed didn't divert 30%. So contextually, if he is not prosecuted to send a message to everybody, then this decay will continue. And another thing is that it must be appreciated that anything to do with education must follow due process. We can't run education according to native law and custom. It has to be done properly. There is a university law. If for any reason university law is not adequate, seek an amendment of it. But there can't be too much room of discretion when you are trying to run a university. Ogundipe was caught forging a document. Forging. He wanted to make somebody for director of works. I wasn't part of the panel. And they did the scoring. The person came second. Unknown to him, one of the panel members had recorded all the scores, told him, go and collate the scores. He came back, second had become first. And he was challenged frontally. It's in the minutes of the meeting that he forged documents. And he's parading himself as vice-chancellor. What is the quality of the degree in science if he can forge documents? Why? What's so important about being vice-chancellor if you're a scholar? Why does it mean so much to you? I left as pro-chancellor of a big university in one day. As soon as I realized that, my employers think I've not done the right thing. I'll bow out in honor. Let me go.
Well, 1 year after, it's good that you have been vindicated.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much, Dr. Wale Babalakin, SAN.